The Golden Cage. Nathan Reynolds checked his watch, another meeting running overtime. At 42, he'd built Horizon Technologies into a billion-dollar company, yet lately he felt like an imposter in his own life. The San Francisco skyline glittered through his office windows, a view that once inspired him but now felt like a beautiful prison. "Mr. Reynolds, your wife called again," his assistant mentioned as he finally emerged from the conference room. "She wanted to remind you about dinner with the Crawfords tonight." Nathan nodded absently. Another networking dinner with Eliza charming potential investors while he discussed market projections. 10 years of marriage had transformed into a business partnership, efficient, respectful, and utterly devoid of passion. Eliza had been his rock during the startup years. A brilliant investment banker, she'd helped secure their first round of funding and manage their finances with precision. They'd been unstoppable together, climbing social and financial ladders in perfect synchronicity. But somewhere along the way, success had replaced intimacy. Their conversations revolved around schedules and social obligations rather than dreams or desires. "Tell her I'll be there," he said, then added, "I need to stop by the new office space first." The downtown renovation project wasn't actually urgent, but it offered a temporary escape. The historic building was being transformed into Horizon's creative headquarters, a passion project that had rekindled some of Nathan's enthusiasm for work. The old brick building hummed with activity as contractors finished interior walls and designers debated lighting fixtures. Nathan wandered through, nodding approvingly at the progress when he noticed a woman sketching intently in the future atrium space. She sat cross-legged on the floor, her dark curls falling forward as she worked, completely absorbed in whatever vision she was capturing. When she finally looked up, her warm brown eyes widened in recognition. "Mr. Reynolds! I'm sorry, I didn't realize you were visiting today." She quickly gathered her materials, standing with graceful ease. "I'm Olivia Chen, lead on the interior design team." "Please don't stop on my account," Nathan said, genuinely curious. "What were you working on?" Olivia hesitated before sharing her sketchbook. "I was reimagining the atrium. The current plans are beautiful, but conventional. I thought it could be more than that." Her design transformed the space into something Nathan hadn't considered, a flowing indoor garden that blurred the line between work and nature. It was bold, innovative, and somehow exactly what he'd wanted without being able to articulate it. "This is extraordinary," he said, studying the details. "Why wasn't this in the official proposals?" Olivia's smile held a hint of mischief. "Because I just thought of it today. Sometimes inspiration doesn't follow corporate timelines." For the first time in months, Nathan laughed genuinely. They spent the next hour discussing possibilities, with Olivia challenging his assumptions and Nathan finding himself defending choices he'd never fully examined. By the time he glanced at his watch again, he was alarmingly late for dinner. But something had shifted inside him, a dormant part awakening to possibility. That night at dinner, while Eliza expertly navigated conversations with the Crawfords, Nathan found himself distant, his thoughts returning to the afternoon's unexpected connection. The ease of it, the spark of creative friction, the simple pleasure of being seen not as Nathan Reynolds, CEO, but just as a man with ideas. As he watched his wife, elegant, accomplished, and increasingly unfamiliar, he realized they hadn't truly seen each other in years. The thought settled like a stone in his stomach, heavy with implications. Later that night, Eliza's voice cut through the silence of their bedroom. "You were somewhere else tonight." It wasn't an accusation, merely an observation. "Just work," he replied, the half-truth bitter on his tongue. "The new office space is coming along." She nodded, not pushing further, and Nathan wondered if she too felt relieved to avoid deeper waters. They moved around each other with practiced efficiency, preparing for bed without truly connecting. As moonlight filtered through their designer blinds, Nathan stared at the ceiling, thinking about brick walls, spontaneous sketches, and the dangerous allure of feeling alive again. Tides of deception. The lines between professional consultation and personal interest blurred rapidly over the following weeks. Nathan found himself scheduling unnecessary site visits to the renovation project, each time lingering longer with Olivia. Their conversations expanded beyond design choices to books they'd read, places they'd traveled, and dreams they'd shelved. "You never mentioned why you became an interior designer," Nathan said one afternoon as they walked through the half-finished space, their footsteps echoing on concrete floors. Olivia's fingers trailed along an exposed brick wall. "I grew up in foster homes, 7 of them before I turned 18. None of them ever felt like mine." She paused, seeming surprised by her own candor. "I guess I'm trying to create spaces where people feel they belong." The vulnerability in her admission touched something in Nathan that had been dormant for too long. That evening, instead of going home, they found themselves at a small bistro tucked away in North Beach, sharing a bottle of wine as sunset painted the sky in shades of amber and rose. "Tell me about your wife," Olivia finally said, her voice gentle but direct. Nathan swirled the remaining wine in his glass. "Eliza and we used to be partners in every sense. Lately, we're more like roommates with excellent scheduling skills." The truth felt both liberating and disloyal. She suggested we take some time apart to figure things out. "She's been staying at our beach house more often." It wasn't entirely false. Eliza had indeed suggested they needed space, frustrated by Nathan's increasing emotional absence. But he omitted that he'd been the one pulling away, creating the very distance he now presented as mutual. Meanwhile, at the Reynolds oceanfront property in Mendocino, Eliza sat on the deck watching waves crash against rugged cliffs. At 40, she still turned heads with her poised elegance, blonde hair cut in a sophisticated bob that framed intelligent blue eyes. The cool sea air felt cleansing after the suffocation of her marriage. "More tea?" asked Margot, her closest friend since college, who had joined her for moral support. "Please," Eliza accepted the steaming mug gratefully. "I keep wondering when exactly we became strangers." It wasn't overnight. Margot settled into the adjacent chair. Marriages don't usually die from sudden injuries. It's the small daily neglects that accumulate. "The thing is," Eliza confessed, "I'm not even sure Nathan has noticed how far apart we've drifted. He seems relieved by the distance." What Eliza couldn't articulate was her own culpability. She had sublimated her passion for architectural design into managing Nathan's career, convinced their shared success would sustain them. Now she wondered if they'd built an impressive structure with no foundation. "I'm staying here until the end of the month," she decided aloud. "No calls to Nathan, no checking in. I need to remember who I am without him." As Eliza sought clarity in solitude, Nathan found himself texting Olivia with increasing frequency. Their messages evolved from professional questions to personal observations, inside jokes, and finally, tentative flirtation. 3 weeks after their first dinner, Nathan suggested a weekend trip to review coastal properties for potential company retreats. Olivia accepted, both of them maintaining the pretense that the invitation was primarily professional. "I have a family place in Mendocino," he told her. "It's secluded, perfect for thinking through the retreat concept without distractions." Nathan knew Eliza rarely used the property during the week, typically reserving her visits for weekends. He calculated she would be back in San Francisco by Friday afternoon, leaving the coastal house empty. The deception made his stomach twist with guilt, but not enough to stop him. On Thursday evening, as Nathan and Olivia drove north along Highway 1, the ocean spread out beside them in endless blue. Conversation flowed easily between them, punctuated by comfortable silences. When their hands brushed as Olivia changed the music, neither pulled away. "Are we still pretending this is about work?" she finally asked as they turned onto the private road leading to the property. Nathan's grip tightened on the steering wheel. "No," he admitted, "but I'm not sure what it is about." The truth hung between them. They were rushing toward a threshold neither had fully acknowledged. As they crested the final hill, the house came into view, a modern structure of glass and redwood perched on the cliff's edge. But Nathan's breath caught when he noticed lights already glowing from within. His mind raced through possibilities, a caretaker, a security check, before settling on the unavoidable truth. Eliza's sleek silver Audi was parked in the drive. "Is something wrong?" Olivia asked, noticing his sudden tension. "No," Nathan lied automatically, then immediately corrected himself. Actually, yes. It seems my wife decided to stay here longer than expected. The words hung in the air, heavy with implications neither had prepared for. Collision course. The kitchen timer chimed softly as Eliza removed a tray of roasted vegetables from the oven. After years of elaborate dinner parties and business lunches, she found unexpected pleasure in cooking simple meals for herself. Music played quietly through the house, not the carefully curated playlists for entertaining, but songs she'd loved in college, before Nathan, before Horizon Technologies. The sound of tires on the gravel driveway broke her reverie. Margot wasn't expected until tomorrow, and the property was too remote for casual visitors. Wiping her hands, Eliza moved toward the expansive windows overlooking the approach. Her breath caught at the familiar silhouette of Nathan's Range Rover. When he emerged from the driver's side, Eliza's momentary hope that he'd come to reconcile evaporated as a woman stepped out from the passenger seat. Even from a distance, Eliza recognized the unmistakable body language of attraction between them, the slightly too close stance, the lingering eye contact. Something cold and crystalline formed in the center of her chest. Not just betrayal, but confirmation of what she'd suspected. Nathan hadn't been absent from their marriage, he'd been present elsewhere. Inside the car, Nathan's mind raced through increasingly inadequate explanations. "This is complicated," he told Olivia, his voice strained. "Let me speak with Eliza first." Olivia's expression had hardened into something unreadable. "You said you were separated." "We are. In every way that matters," he insisted, the half-truth souring in his mouth. "But the conversation about divorce hasn't happened officially." "So I'm what exactly? The catalyst for that conversation?" Olivia's voice was dangerously calm. "Or just a weekend distraction while you figure things out?" Before Nathan could respond, the front door opened. Eliza stood framed in the doorway, her composure both familiar and devastating. She'd always been skilled at containing her emotions, a quality Nathan had once admired and now dreaded. "Nathan," she said evenly, "this is unexpected." The deliberate understatement hung in the salt-laden air. Nathan stepped forward, feeling as though he were moving through deep water. "Eliza, I can explain." "I'm sure you can," she interrupted, her gaze shifting to Olivia, who had reluctantly exited the car. "And you must be?" "Olivia Chen," she replied, discomfort evident in her rigid posture. "I work on the Horizon downtown project." "Of course you do." Eliza's smile never reached her eyes. "Well, you've both had a long drive. You might as well come in." The surreal civility was worse than any confrontation Nathan had imagined. They followed Eliza into the house, the space suddenly foreign despite its familiarity. The domestic scene they'd interrupted was painfully evident. A half-prepared meal, an open book on the couch, a single glass of wine. "I was just making dinner," Eliza continued, returning to the kitchen. "There's plenty for everyone, though I wasn't expecting company." "Eliza, we should talk." "Alone," Nathan attempted, his voice unexpectedly hoarse. "Should we?" Eliza turned to face him, her composure finally slipping. "Because it seems you've been doing plenty of talking with Ms. Chen already." She took a steadying breath. "I've been here for 3 weeks, Nathan. Not a single call from you asking when I'd return." The accusation landed precisely. Nathan hadn't called because he hadn't wanted to know. Olivia stood awkwardly by the entryway, witnessing the disintegration of the narrative she'd been told. "I should go," she said quietly. This was clearly a mistake. "No," Eliza countered, surprising them both. "You came all this way based on what my husband told you. I think you deserve to hear the truth, too." She poured herself another glass of wine with deliberate steadiness. "Which version of our marriage did Nathan share with you?" The question hung in the air, charged with a decade of shared history that Olivia couldn't possibly understand. In that moment, the full magnitude of Nathan's deception expanded to include not just his betrayal of Eliza, but his dishonesty with Olivia as well. "He said you were separated," Olivia finally answered, her voice small but determined. "That you both wanted different things." Eliza's laugh held no humor. "Did we discuss that, Nathan? Because I remember suggesting we needed time to reconnect, not separate." The carefully constructed justifications Nathan had built over weeks collapsed under the weight of Eliza's direct gaze. He had rewritten their story to absolve himself, transforming Eliza's attempt to save their marriage into permission to abandon it. "I thought that's what you meant," he said weakly. "You seemed so distant." "So did you," Eliza replied, the simple truth more damning than any accusation. As the three adults stood in the suspended moment, the ocean crashed relentlessly against the cliffs below, indifferent to the human drama unfolding above. Broken reflections. The night stretched into an exquisite form of emotional torture. After Eliza's revelation, Olivia had insisted on leaving despite the late hour and treacherous coastal roads. Nathan arranged for a car service to take her to the nearest hotel, their goodbyes stiff and hollow under Eliza's watchful gaze. "You don't have to stay," Eliza told Nathan when they were finally alone, moonlight streaming through the windows. "You could follow her." "Is that what you want?" he asked. "What I want stopped mattering to you long before she entered the picture." The truth of her words hung between them like shattered glass, beautiful in its broken clarity, dangerous to touch. They retreated to separate rooms, the house suddenly vast in its silence. Nathan lay awake, staring at the ceiling of the guest bedroom, listening to the rhythmic crash of waves below. For the first time, he saw his actions without the comforting filter of self-justification. He had constructed an elaborate narrative where he was the victim of a cold marriage rather than its architect. At dawn, he found Eliza already on the deck, wrapped in a thick sweater against the morning chill. She looked smaller somehow, more vulnerable than he'd allowed himself to see in years. "I keep asking myself when we stop talking," she said without turning. "Really talking, not just coordinating schedules or discussing investments." Nathan leaned against the railing, maintaining a careful distance. "I think it happened so gradually we didn't notice. Success became our shared project instead of us." "That's too simple," Eliza challenged. "You chose to stop seeing me, Nathan." "I was still here." Her voice carried no accusation, only a weariness that cut deeper than anger could have. "When did I become invisible to you?" The question struck Nathan with unexpected force. He searched his memory for the moment when Eliza had transformed from partner to accessory in his mind. "I don't know," he admitted finally. "Maybe when I started feeling invisible too." Miles away in a sparse hotel room, Olivia sat cross-legged on the bed, her sketchbook open but untouched. The previous night played on loop in her mind, the shock of seeing Eliza, the gradual realization that Nathan's separation was largely fictional, the humiliation of being the unwitting other woman. She had believed herself too smart, too perceptive to fall into such a cliché. Yet here she was, another casualty of a man's midlife discontent. She thought of the designs she'd created for Horizon's new office, spaces meant to foster authenticity and connection. The irony wasn't lost on her. Her phone buzzed with a text from Nathan. "We need to talk." "I can explain." The familiar phrases of men caught in their own deceptions. Olivia felt a clarity she hadn't expected. What had drawn her to Nathan wasn't love but recognition. She had seen in him the same restless searching she carried from her fragmented childhood. Two people looking for belonging in the wrong places. She typed a response, deleted it, then finally wrote, "There's nothing to explain." We both know what this was. What we need is to end it cleanly. Back at the Cliff House, Eliza and Nathan moved through the day in careful orbits, their conversation continuing in fragments between long silences. They prepared meals together with the mechanical efficiency of their former life, the domestic ritual highlighting everything lost between them. "Did you love her?" Eliza asked as they cleared lunch dishes. "I barely know her," Nathan answered truthfully. "I think I loved how she made me feel, new, unjudged, possible. And I made you feel known," he said after a pause. "Too known, maybe. All my failures cataloged alongside my successes." Eliza placed a plate in the dishwasher with deliberate care. "I never meant to make you feel judged. I thought I was supporting you. By being perfect? Always handling everything so I never had to worry?" The words emerged sharper than intended. Your competence became another standard I could never quite reach. Eliza stared at him, genuinely surprised. You thought I was perfect? Nathan, I've been drowning for years trying to be what I thought you needed. Her laugh held a note of disbelief. I gave up my own practice to help build your dream. I thought that's what you wanted. I never asked you to do that, Nathan countered. You never had to ask. You just accepted without question every sacrifice I made. She shook her head. And I let you, because somewhere along the way, I decided your dreams were more important than mine. As evening approached, Nathan received another message from Olivia. I'm heading back to the city tonight. Whatever you decide about your marriage, please don't contact me again. We both deserve better than this beginning. Weathered shores. 6 months later, Olivia stood in the completed atrium of Horizon Technologies' downtown headquarters. Sunlight streamed through the skylights she'd designed, casting dappled patterns across bamboo and stone. Her vision had been realized, a space that balanced innovation with serenity. The corporate with the human. It's extraordinary, said a familiar voice behind her. Olivia turned to find Eliza Reynolds, elegant as ever in a tailored pantsuit, but somehow changed. More present, more vibrant. Thank you, Olivia replied, her initial tension easing into professional composure. I didn't expect to see you here. I'm actually consulting on the acoustics for the conference levels, Eliza explained. My architectural practice is active again. The awkwardness between them was undeniable, but not insurmountable. Both women had moved through their shared crisis to reach this unexpected meeting point. Nathan told me you were back to your own work, Olivia said carefully. He mentioned you're designing a community arts center. Eliza nodded, her expression softening slightly. It's been clarifying to rediscover my own voice. She glanced around the atrium. Your design does what good spaces should. It tells the truth about itself. The compliment, genuine and professional, created a bridge between them, not friendship, but a recognition of each other's worth beyond their connection to Nathan. Are you and Nathan? Olivia began, then stopped herself. I'm sorry, that's not my business. It's a fair question, Eliza said. We're separated. Officially this time. Her smile held a complex mixture of sadness and peace. We're trying to unravel a decade with grace rather than bitterness. Some days we succeed. After Eliza departed, Olivia found herself reflecting on the strange paths that connected people's lives. The affair that might have destroyed 3 people had instead become a painful but necessary catalyst for truth. Across town, Nathan sat in his therapist's office, a space he'd once considered unnecessary but now recognized as essential. You mentioned you saw Olivia's completed design yesterday, Dr. Matthews noted. How did that feel? Like witnessing someone else's success story, Nathan replied after consideration. I'm proud of her work, but I understand now why we couldn't be part of each other's lives. And the divorce papers? Dr. Matthews asked gently. Eliza mentioned you've been hesitating to sign them. Nathan leaned back in his chair, considering the question. It feels so final. 10 years ending with a signature. Is it really ending, though? Or just changing form? The question lingered with Nathan as he left the session and walked through the bustling financial district. His phone buzzed with a message from Eliza. Lunch next week to discuss the house sale? Your choice of restaurant this time. Their communication had evolved into something he couldn't have imagined 6 months ago. Honest, direct, and occasionally even warm. They were learning to be friends after failing as spouses, the shared history between them too valuable to discard entirely. That evening, Nathan visited a small gallery opening in the Mission District. The artist, a former colleague from Horizon's early days, greeted him warmly. Solo tonight? She asked. Just me, Nathan confirmed, surprising himself with how comfortable the answer felt. The desperate loneliness that had driven him to Olivia had receded, replaced by a growing appreciation for his own company. As he moved through the gallery, Nathan noticed a woman studying a particularly striking installation. Something in her absorbed attention reminded him of Olivia that first day, sketching on the floor of the unfinished atrium. But when she turned, the resemblance ended. She was entirely herself, a stranger with curious eyes. "What do you think it means?" she asked, noticing his gaze. "I think it's about perspective," Nathan replied after studying the fractured mirrors and suspended objects. "How we see ourselves differently depending on where we stand." She smiled, extending her hand. "I'm Rebecca." "Nathan," he replied, accepting her handshake without expectation or agenda. Whatever might develop, friendship, a fleeting conversation, or something more, would begin with honesty. Back in her newly purchased condo overlooking the bay, Olivia added final touches to designs for her own emerging firm. After the Horizon project's success, she'd received offers from several prestigious companies, but had chosen independence instead. Her phone chimed with a message from her contractor. Foundation inspection passed. Construction starts Monday. The foster home she was renovating in Oakland would be her most meaningful project yet, creating the sense of belonging she had sought throughout her childhood. The journey that had begun with Nathan had led her here, though not in the way either of them had imagined. On the Mendocino Cliffs, the house stood empty, awaiting new owners. Eliza had visited one last time to collect remaining belongings and close this chapter properly. Walking through rooms that had witnessed both the best and worst of her marriage, she felt a surprising lightness. On the deck where she had once stood wounded and furious, Eliza now breathed deeply of the salt air. The ocean below continued its eternal rhythm, advancing, retreating, transforming the shoreline with patient persistence. Like the coast itself, she had been weathered but not diminished by the forces that had crashed against her. As sunset painted the horizon in brilliant orange and gold, Eliza thought about the nature of endings and beginnings, how they often occurred simultaneously, indistinguishable until viewed from a distance. The pain of betrayal had forced her to reclaim parts of herself surrendered too easily to partnership. She took one final photograph of the view, not as a memento of loss, but as a reminder of resilience. Whatever came next, career revival, solitude, or perhaps someday a love built on clearer foundations, she would face it as herself, complete and undivided. 3 lives that had collided so dramatically had found their separate courses again, altered by the encounter, but ultimately navigating toward shores that better suited each soul's true nature.